from DailyFanMMA.com, back with another UFC Quick Picks on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC Vegas 68 this weekend, which is Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak in the main event. 12 fights on the slate, should be pretty action-packed. As usual, I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup of the week from a DraftKings perspective. And before I do, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below. Let me know. Give me a fighter who you think is going to win inside the distance. There's a bunch of them this week. I think a bunch of fights are projected to end inside the distance. If you can correctly identify that fighter, you're going to have a leg up on the field. So always interested to hear what y'all have to say. Without further ado, let's get into the picks. And my cash game play of the week is going to be Tatsuro Taira at 9.6K. All right, in cash games this week, I'm rolling with Tatsuro Taira at 9.6K. Again, we got to play the best plays on the slate in cash games, and Taira rates out as the very best play on the slate. He is around minus 1,200 to win against the debutant Jesus Aguilar. Taira coming off 2 UFC victories in a row, good young prospect, and most recently won by submission against CJ Vergara. Scored 107 points on DraftKings, also scored 97 points in his UFC debut, which was a decision. Now he's a minus 1,200 favorite, minus 170. I see him up to minus 260 to win inside the distance. Those metrics are too strong for me to pass up in cash games. Taira's a pretty decent wrestler. Very solid with his back-taking ability, and his opponent Aguilar just doesn't seem to necessarily be maybe fully ready for the UFC. He did win on the Contender Series in August, won by guillotine choke in round 3. A bunch of his career wins have come by guillotine, but he got taken down in that fight. He got reversed in that fight. He had his back taken. He was mounted, and he's kind of small for this division. He'll be a few inches shorter than Taira. Taira's got 8 inches of reach over him. So even if this fight played out on the feet, I would favor Taira to win. I want him to grapple from a DraftKings perspective to score points, but I do think Taira is a much, much better grappler, should have takedown ability, control ability, and clearly he has finishing potential based on his style and based on these metrics. I do think in tournaments, because he's $300 more expensive than Nakamura, there's Kinoshita there, Lee, Spivak, etc. There are fighters who you can definitely pay down for in tournaments. I do not think you have to force Taira in. However, he rates out very, very strongly, both in terms of a good chance to win the fight, a good chance to score well, a good chance to finish. So I'm very willing to pay that 9.68 price tag in cash game. So Taira will be my cash game play of the week. Moving on to my tournament play of the week, I'm going to give out Sergey Spivak at 8.8K. I really like the main event this week, and I definitely do think Derek Lewis is live as an underdog, especially slim down Derek Lewis. I'm curious to see how, what kind of form he comes into in this matchup, and whether his slim down figure will kind of help him keep the fight upright, which is what he needs against Spivak most likely. Spivak's obviously very skilled on the ground, has had a lot of success on the ground, and probably wants to get Lewis on the mat and submit him or ground and pound him for a finish. Lewis is obviously more dependent on damage, a heavy hitter, and if this fight plays out on the feet, I definitely think Derek Lewis is live. I'm not counting him out in tournaments. I think he's a good tournament option at 7.4K. Spivak just has so much more upside, though. Like Derek Lewis in wins, even in knockout wins. I mean, he's scoring 83 points in a knockout win, 77 points in a knockout win, 86 points in a knockout win. He just doesn't produce that much offense, where Spivak wrestles at a high rate, throws ground and pound at a pretty insane rate, and he's winning and putting up 136 points. 114 points, 132 points, 120 points. These are big numbers. In the main event, 5 rounds to work with, 8.8K is not a super expensive price to pay. I do think he's going to be very popular, but he just has a ceiling that, mostly can't be matched on this slate. Spivak is minus 235 to win. That's indicative of a fighter who's moderately safe. He's also, minus 130 to win inside the distance. That's a pretty good number. Even if he wins by a decision, I would expect a handful of takedowns. Again, I'm not sold that Spivak's winning this fight. I do think Lewis could just stand up when he gets taken down. He's pretty good at that. But I really, from a DraftKings perspective, 8.8K for Spivak. I really like the ceiling here. I really like his style. And in a win, I would expect Spivak to be very competitive with the optimal lineup at this price tag. He's going to be my tournament play of the week. All right, moving on to my salary play of the week. I almost gave this one out as a matchup, but I'm just going to talk about, I'll talk about this fight, and I'll talk about Jia Yi as my salary play of the week down there at 7.3K. I think this week, from a salary perspective, a salary savings perspective, we're mostly taking flyers on a handful of guys who can win inside the distance. I don't feel comfortable about a lot of fighters like Derek Lewis, for example. But if they win, they're probably going to win by KO or win inside the distance. Yi doesn't necessarily reflect that, but it's a very kind of binary style of fight where he's fighting how do I say his name? Jeon Young Lee, who is also making his UFC debut. And Lee has back-to-back wins inside of 1 minute. And he's a very athletic guy, very aggressive, and very dangerous. Like Terrence McKinney-esque in the point where he's very aggressive. He tends to win quickly. He's going to put it on you. And so the downside for Yi is that he just gets absolutely destroyed in 30 seconds and loses. That's fine. The floor of all these fighters in this range is very, very low. So I'm not too worried about the floor. And that's why I like this matchup as a whole. One of my favorite matchups from an entertainment standpoint. If Lee wins, it very well could be from a striking-based finish early in the fight. However, a lot of his fights end quickly, and Yi is coming off a very, very hard-fought decision on the road to the UFC, the semifinals, in which he landed 6 of 9 takedowns. His opponent landed 6 of 14 takedowns. Just a brutal pace, and like Yi looked pretty decent, not in terms of his ability to just dominate any opponent he faces with wrestling, but that was a really hard pace. And against an opponent like Lee, who comes out aggressive, who's gonna look for a finish quickly, if Lee doesn't get that finish and Jia Yi just survives, I really think Yi has potential to wear on Lee over the course of this fight, land takedowns, tire Lee out, and win a decision or even win inside the distance. Yi is a capable submission grappler, decent back taker. Even in one of Lee's recent 30-second-esque wins, he got taken down in the first minute, and he won by submission from his back. That's good, but it doesn't indicate it's impossible to take him down. And if you do take him down, he might lay on his back and try and win by submission. So I definitely think Yi has a path to victory here, and that path to victory is probably dependent on takedowns, control, ground and pound, and maybe even a finish. So at 7.3K, I'm willing to take a chance. I'm willing to take a chance. Derek Lewis is going to be very popular. There's not a lot of strong options. I think Yi at least has a path to victory and a path to a solid score on DraftKings if he does win. I don't expect heavy ownerships. And I also like Lee for his early KO ability in this matchup, but Yi will be my salary play of the week down there at 7.3K. All right, moving on to my matchup of the week. I'm going to talk about Junyoung Park versus Denis Tululin. And I'm just going to call him Dennis. But Park is minus 225. Dennis plus 185. Park is 8.5K only. Dennis 7.7K on DraftKings. And again, I think it's a pretty decent matchup to target from a DraftKings perspective. Tululin is a kind of just a brawler, an aggressive striker. He's coming off a knockout victory against Jamie Pickett in his UFC debut. He got out grappled and submitted by Khizriev. He's not great, especially on the ground. He's not a great defensive wrestler, not a great submission grappler. The aggression kind of plays into it, but he's dangerous on the feet. And Park's been knocked out. Park was knocked out recently by Gregory Rodriguez. He was finished by Anthony Hernandez. That was by submission in 2019. But I definitely think Dennis is capable of winning by knockout if this fight plays out on the feet, just based on his aggression alone and the fact that we've already seen Park get KO'd. Park is probably going to be looking for takedowns. He averages 2.27 takedowns per 15 minutes. We've seen him land 2, 4, 5 takedowns in fights before. and that's probably a pretty realistic path to victory for him in this matchup. Should be a very high pace. If he does get those takedowns, he has finishing ability, coming off a submission win against Joseph Holmes. Park is only plus 200 to win inside the distance, so maybe he won't be chalky, which is nice. 8.5K, yeah, sure, there's risks. There's risks on all these guys. If Park wins a boring, slow-paced, striking-based decision, he's not going to score well. But I like the projected pace for exchanges. I like the takedown ability. I like the theoretical finishing upside in Park, the price, theoretical moderate to low ownership even. 8.5K, I think he's a good option. And Dennis down there, 7.7K. Kind of knockout or bust, but that seems like a somewhat realistic outcome if he wins at all. Certainly willing to take chances on him. The fight as a whole is minus 130, ends inside the distance. One of the better matchups on this slate, in my opinion. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you again for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Brett Apley, _T_P, dailyfanmma.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Best of luck in your contest this week. Stay safe. Take care. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.